Bible too, and this is one of the reasons why our next speaker, the information that she has to give to you is so profoundly important. Because like I said, the bad guys read the Bible too, and they'll do everything that they can. They want to do everything they can to bring about the prophecy and get everybody afraid. Remember, fear is control, but once you know, if man fears the unknown, you take the unknown away, it becomes a known, and the fear just dissipates. One major player in the dissipation of fear is our next speaker, Dr. Katherine Albrecht.
I like saying that doctor thing. I like that.
Well, I got to tell you what an absolute pleasure it is to be here today with all of you and to be among God-fearing and God-loving people here in the state of West Virginia. I flew down here from New Hampshire, the live free or die state, as I say on my radio program. And yeah, it's a wonderful place to be. And I want to ask you, in thinking about the whole issue of living free, one of the things that I've really enjoyed is that at the book table, where I sell books, no one has said, will you take my Visa card? Not a single one of you has said, would you take my MasterCard, my Discover card? In fact, at the table that I sit at, no one has even asked me to take a check. And I have to tell you that I have traveled all over this big planet. I have spoken to the European Union. I have spoken in virtually every state in the country. I have been everywhere. And I have never been to an event where I didn't have to say, I'm sorry, I only take cash. So on that note, thank you. I'll give you a hand on that one. The reason I bring this up is because in the presentation I'm going to be talking about the issues of privacy related to your buying and selling, which ties very directly into biblical prophecy, and into issues related to the mark of the beast. And I'm also going to be talking about your individual privacy. And I want to do a thought experiment with you for a moment first. Imagine if when you walked in that door, that I had taken that bag. See that white bag there on the floor, those of you in the front? It's a little handbag, woman's handbag, a little bigger. And imagine if instead of having regular things in there, I had a reader device in there that I could have simply set next to the door. Nobody would have noticed. No one noticed it was over there. And as you walk through the doorway, I could have done a virtual frisk of every single item you were wearing and carrying. Everything in your pocket, everything you women in your purse, you men in your backpack, if you were carrying a travel bag, all the way down to the size and color of your underwear, right through your clothing. That's what we're about to talk about, a technology that will actually make it possible in the future for government officials, marketers, criminals, and anyone else with the right equipment to do exactly that. Now, not only would it mean that I would be able to be a voyeur and frisk around your belongings, but it would also mean that if I had an interest in identifying down to the last person, every single person in this room, I could do it with this technology. So not only would I know everything you were wearing and carrying, but I would know who you were, who you walked through the doorway with, how long you spent in this room, which speakers you heard, when you were out in the hallway, and everything else about what you had done. The technology to do this exists today. It is called RFID. We call them spy chips. And that's what I'm going to talk about. So the first part of this talk, I'm going to explain to you what the technology is, how it works, why it was developed, and why now close to $1 billion have been invested in creating the infrastructure to place these RFID spy chips into all of your belongings and to create an infrastructure that would enable it to all be tagged. Then I'm going to tie that in with the human implants, which are a version of RFID, and then we'll conclude talking a little bit about Scripture, because this is the kind of crowd where I can do that. All right, let me start out by explaining what an RFID tag is. And it's important when you refer to these that you call them RFID tags rather than chips. And here's why. What you see on the left-hand side is a human finger. And there, the tiny little dot on that human finger is an RFID microchip. Now, that tiny microchip can be encoded with information. Because it's so small, you can't fit a lot of information on there. So that particular microchip probably only contains a unique ID number, like a serial number or like a social security number. Now, that tiny microchip by itself is not capable of transmitting its information until it's hooked up to an antenna. And that's the picture you see on the right. Let's see if my laser's working here. Okay, the little thing in the middle is the RFID chip, and then the thing running around the edge of it, see if I can make this work. There, that is the antenna running around the edge of it. So when you have your microchip and your antenna combination, it enables the antenna, uses radio waves to send that information out. Here are some other examples. They don't always look like that with a microchip antenna and a nice easy sticker. They can embed them into plastic devices. They can place them into virtually anything that's not made out of metal or water. Metal and water both interfere with the radio scan. Metal because it bounces it around erratically, and water because it tends to absorb radio energy. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But basically anything you can imagine that's not metal or water can be RFID tagged or turned into an RFID tag. Now, to read the information, the reader device, which is what this person's holding in their hand, the reader device sends out a signal, a radio frequency signal, what we would refer to as a radio wave. You could also call it electromagnetic energy. It sends it out. It is picked up then by the antenna, which in this case is an X shape. The antenna picks up the energy from the reader, directs it to the chip, and gives it just enough energy to send back its unique ID signal back to the reader. And then at that point, it can be stored in a database. Okay, now what would be on such an RFID tag or on the microchip? The leading contender for that is something called the EPC, or the Electronic Product Code. And the Electronic Product Code is the replacement for the barcode. It's actually quite disturbing because in 2003, the people who managed the barcode actually took over the system for using these EPC tags. So electronic product code as opposed to what the barcode of today is called the universal product code. Let me see if I can break this down for you because I think it's important. And whenever you talk about RFID tags, the industry likes to say things like, well, don't worry, it's just the same information that's on a barcode. Well, kind of, but not really. The information in the first little block, the 016, that's some technical information that tells the reader what kind of RFID tag you have. You don't really need to worry about that. The second part tells you who manufactured the product that it's on. So for example, in a 12-pack of Coca-Cola or a 6-pack of Coke, that part would tell you Coca-Cola. The third part would tell you what the product is. So it might say six 12-ounce cans, for example. And up until that point, it's exactly the same as what's on a barcode today. What makes the RFID tag different is the last portion, the serial number there. And the plan is for each individual item on Earth to be issued its own unique ID number. So today, if I buy a 6-pack of Coke here in West Virginia, and then I go home tomorrow and I buy a 6-pack of Coke in New Hampshire, the barcode numbers would be identical on all 12 cans. In the future, all 12 cans would have unique ID numbers. And the potential for using those unique ID numbers for tracking things over time, over distance, is actually quite phenomenal. Because what it means is that you could actually follow the history of an individual unique can of Coke. So when I bought that can of Coke, if I scanned a credit card or paid with an ATM card or used a frequent shopper card, that unique ID number could be linked up with me in a database. That's the significance. We'll talk a little more. That's going to be sort of the theme of this as we go. But this is what's on the tiny microchip that's envisioned for computer products instead of barcodes. All right. I first fell into the whole RFID world back in 2002. I was researching supermarket frequent shopper cards, which were the topic of my Harvard dissertation. And any of you that are paying with cash, you should probably not be carrying around supermarket frequent shopper cards, because if you think that using a credit card renders you trackable, the frequent shopper card that you're using actually renders you extra trackable. And down the road, they're even talking about putting RFID tags into those so they can render you physically trackable, not just track your purchases. So in any event, back in 2002, I read a quote by a guy named John Sturmer, vice president for AC Nielsen, the market research company. And it said, first there were barcodes, which did a really good job of turning things into numbers that we could store in computers and keep track of what was being sold. Then came the frequent shopper card, which did a really good job of telling us who was buying the products that we were selling. But there was something missing. What we still don't know is when, where, and how people use the products after they buy them. And I looked at this on the page, and I did a double take, and I said, when, where, and how we use products? We use the products we buy in our homes, in our bathrooms, and in our kitchens. You got to be kidding me that these people actually want to now go to the next step and observe and monitor our use of products. And sure enough, when I dug a little deeper, I discovered that right down the street from Harvard University, where I was a graduate student, that at MIT, Over 100 of the world's leading corporations had gotten together behind closed doors and had developed this EPC system, had developed a way to take RFID technology and make it small enough and efficient enough and cheap enough that they actually envisioned placing one of these on every product manufactured in every manufacturing plant everywhere on Earth. Every light bulb, every pen, every pair of shoes, every book, everything. And these are just a few of the companies that were involved. It was also funded originally with seed money from Gillette and Procter & Gamble. They have since merged to become the world's largest consumer product company. In fact, they are to consumer products what Walmart is to retail. They are absolutely the biggest, and I am betting that you have many, many Procter & Gamble products in your home and don't even realize it. Crest toothpaste, Cascade dishwashing detergent, Tide laundry soap, Clairol, cosmetic products, all of that is manufactured by Procter & Gamble. And they're the big push behind RFID comes from those companies. In addition, unsurprisingly, the Department of Defense was one of the initial sponsors of this project. Now, we found, my co-author, my Spy Chips co-author, Liz McIntyre, and I, in 2003, were poking around the website of this industry consortium, and we got a couple of documents back that said confidential on them. So we thought, well, why don't we do a little bit of sort of what I refer to as non-hacking. We went onto their website, and in the little search engine, we did the very high-tech thing of typing in the word confidential and hitting search, and it returned over 60 documents to us, right there on the page. So as you can imagine, we had a lot of fun going through those documents, which included some very detailed documents. They're online now, you can find them, but included some very detailed PR and promotional plans for how they plan to get the public around the world to accept this. And they interviewed people in Europe, in Asia, across the US, and everywhere. And what they all came back universally and said is, people aren't going to buy this. They don't trust us to use this properly, and they immediately see the privacy implications of making things remotely trackable and readable. So, but one of the things we found the most interesting in these documents were a series of photographs that appeared to indicate that they had already been hiding RFID tags into products sold to consumers as early as 2002. So if you look at this, this is a 6-inch RFID tag. The microchip is up. See if I can get it there. Up there in the center. And then the brown stuff around there is the antenna. But this is a 6-inch tag. Now, the bigger the tag is, the longer the read range. So if you have a small tag, you have to hold your reader right up next to it. But if you've got a big tag, you can actually do it at a distance. The distance for the read range depends on a lot of different factors. And typically, it ranges from anywhere from a couple of millimeters for the ones we saw in the guy's thumb. You can actually put a mini antenna in there, to about 15, 20 feet away. It's hard to get any longer of a read range than that without a battery, though. So what we found was a 6-inch tag, which probably had a read range of about 10 feet, I'm guessing. And the next slide showed us how they had actually hidden it between the layers of cardboard. We found another one, 6-inch tag, and in this case, the antenna is the horizontal sort of pinkish substance, and the chip's in the middle. And their slide showed that they'd hidden that in Pantene shampoo. And if you are not I used to be a Pantene shampoo user until I saw this slide, and I have never bought it since. But this picture right here shows you that if you're not a Pantene shampoo user, you wouldn't know this, but that's a flip top. So you flip the top and you squeeze the shampoo out. You would have had to have a screwdriver and pry the top off to have found this inside of there. And even if you did, you wouldn't know what it was, and you wouldn't know who to tell, even if you suspected something. So we believe that they had begun selling these to consumers as early as 2002. Now, there's a new way to make them even more difficult to detect, though. These tiny chips, there's 150 in this vial next to a dime, and the most recent chips are about 1/10 that big. They're made by Hitachi, so they're getting smaller and smaller. But now remember, that chip is not able to transmit anything without an antenna. So when people say, I'm worried I might swallow one of them, they could put it in the pepper shaker, it wouldn't do anybody any good, because even if you held a reader right up to your stomach, you still wouldn't be able to read a chip that small without an antenna attached to it. But here's what they're doing now. They've developed a form of antenna, a form of conductive ink that they can spray onto a package and then put the chip onto that, and the whole package functions as the antenna. So literally the packaging, the colors of the package could be acting as a transmitter. Most recently, there's a company called Checkpoint Systems, which specializes in manufacturing anti-theft tags. And you've probably seen those. They look a lot like RFID tags, and they set off the gates at the Walmart store or whatever retail store you're shopping at. Well, that company specializes in embedding anti-theft tags, which actually don't have a lot of privacy implications and aren't that problematic. But they specialize in hiding them in consumer products. And most recently, we know that they embed them in the tags in the soles of shoes. They sew them into clothing. They put them lots of places. And they've now made an announcement just this last month that they're going to begin placing RFID tags in all of those locations, that they've already specialized in placing the anti-theft tags. So all of the things that we're talking about with RFID could actually be happening under our noses, because these companies specialize in doing that secretly, because for anti-theft purposes, you don't want the shoplifters and the thieves to know where it is. So they boast that they can actually as they're creating plastic objects, they can literally drop the RFID tag into the mold and pour the plastic around it, and you would be unable to ever find it there. We found at a trade show in 2003 a Calvin Klein clothing label. And when you opened it up, they had hidden an RFID chip and antenna in there. So this is a label that would be sewn into the back of a shirt or a sweater. Also in 2003, tags were hidden in Gillette razor products. You couldn't find it unless you did an X-ray of the package. And they were hooked up to shelving so that the shelf had a reader in it, and as you picked up the razor products, the shelf would actually trigger a hidden camera to take a photograph of the person picking up the product. And the idea here was to prevent shoplifting. Every person picking up these expensive razor blades that are frequently stolen would have their picture taken. And then they did a second hidden camera at the check stand, so when you went to pay, then they would take your picture again. And in what I think was like the dumbest anti-shoplifting thing I could ever imagine, they had store employees who were supposed to compare the pictures at the shelf and at the check stand and make sure that everyone who picked up the razors was seen paying for them. And if you picked them up and you didn't pay for them, then they would print out your picture as a mugshot and hang it on the wall and look for you the next time you walked in the store. So as anybody who's ever done any shopping knows, this is ridiculous, because as you get up to the check stand, you realize you don't have enough money, and you might ditch the razor blades, in the magazine rack or set them down somewhere else in the store, and this would have pegged you as a shoplifter for doing that. So crazy idea, but it really gives you a sense of how easy it is to use this technology once you've embedded it in the product to do things that would never occur to people, like take mugshots of their faces. In Europe, the industry, all the key players of industry, after we began dogging them here in the States, they moved their big trial laboratory over to Europe. And they have a place called the Metro Future Store in a place called Rheinberg, Germany. And in this future store, where regular people shop, IBM referred to the shoppers in Rheinberg as guinea pigs for their new technology. So it's just a regular supermarket in a suburban part of town. I went over there and did a several-hour tour with the media. And they told us they'd shown us every single thing in the store, and it was they were openly and overtly, obviously, placing these on Pantene shampoo and Gillette razor blades, big surprise. Also, Kraft Philadelphia cream cheese was tagged. And at the end of the 3 hours, I said, "Is there anything else you haven't shown me?" They said, "Nope, you've seen it all." I said, "Great." Well, that night, after having dinner with some local privacy activists, I said, "You know what I forgot to get was one of their frequent shopper cards, and I'm doing my dissertation on it. Let's go back and get one. These are the ones they're always trying. Please sign up for our program." They didn't want to give us one. And I thought, well, that's weird. They usually beg you. They bend over backwards to get you to take these. So the girl she made a couple phone calls. She had to wait for authorization, and finally she grudgingly handed me one of these. Oh, that's kind of weird. Well, whatever. Well, the following day, I'm giving a presentation similar to this one, and I have an RFID reader hooked up to the PowerPoint. And one by one, we're holding up, the Pantene shampoo and the Gillette razor blades. And somebody, as a joke, says, well, next thing you know, they're going to be tagging us. And they grabbed the frequent shopper card and held it up to a reader, and we about fell over when numbers appeared on the screen and data showed up. And it turned out that they had hidden RFID tags in that frequent shopper card. So what that means is if you got one of these in your wallet or your purse and you walk through the doorway, they can scan you. They can identify you. They can time how long you stand in front of the bread aisle, or whether you walk down the liquor aisle, spend a lot of time looking at the liquor but don't actually buy anything. They can print out a coupon to kind of give you a little incentive later on. So they definitely had the potential for some serious tracking. And even outside the store, any place you can put a reader, you can track someone with one of these in their wallet. The good news is that we revealed this to the public, and there was a protest, and they were actually investigated for violating German privacy laws, and they had to cancel the program. 10,000 of these had been issued to consumers, though, before we found out about it. Okay, Walmart stores today, if you're concerned about RFID tags in your belongings, the one place you don't want to be shopping is Walmart. Walmart is the only retailer, Walmart and Levi Strauss are the only two retailers we know of in the United States that are currently selling products tagged with RFID. And what you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner that EPC, that stands for Electronic Product Code. You want to look at the products you buy and see if you see this symbol. The symbol means that there's an RFID tag in the product somewhere, probably on the label where you see the EPC symbol. And if you peel it back, you can actually see the antenna on there. You don't get quite to the chip, but it's in the middle. And you can see it here. Now, it's actually quite small, sometimes hard to spot. We know that if you go into your local Walmart and if you look at the Hewlett-Packard printers and scanners, the Lexmark printers, and the Sanyo televisions, you can actually find RFID tags affixed to them. That is, by the way, in violation of a call for a moratorium on what's called item-level tagging, putting these tags on individual items that was issued by my organization, Caspian, and over 40 of the world's leading privacy and civil liberties groups, including the ACLU, EPIC, EFF, Privacy International, and more. Michelin is now embedding RFID tags into tires. If you can imagine a network of reader devices in the roads could very easily pick up the signals from these and keep track of where you're going. If you don't beat them to the punch and just put a toll transponder in your front window and make it really easy for them. Over 20 million RFID tags have now been issued in credit cards. This is the American Express Blue Card, the Chase Easy Try. I'm not sure all the names of them, but there's 4 or 5 different very highly publicized what they call swipeless RFID cards, or wave and go, where you literally just wave your credit card in front of the reader right through your wallet or purse. It will read the information. And of course, that's the significant part, because radio waves travel right through plastic and leather and all the things we rely on to protect your privacy. Just putting something in your purse won't keep it from being scanned by this. It'll read right through. And now to the human implantation part. Of course, people can be tagged with RFID. This is a picture of the VeriChip human implant manufactured by the VeriChip Corporation out of Delray Beach, Florida. They have now gone public, so they're now selling their stock. What is, I think, very interesting about the VeriChip Corporation, they've been at this since 2001 trying to sell human implants. Back then, they said that they envisioned a market of billions. And the only way I can see a market of billions of people taking a microchip is if the government requires it. Since that time, even though they've burned through over $12 million of investors' money, they have only gotten less than 300 people in the United States to actually take a microchip implant in their bodies. So that's the good news. Nobody wants what they're selling. People are not interested. So now they're having to go into kind of a gray area, and they're beginning to, they're donating these chips to implant in corpses. After Hurricane Katrina and after the tsunami, they did that. They are now going after 200 Alzheimer's patients in West Palm Beach, Florida, and trying to get them chipped as well. So because they cannot find a voluntary market, they're now looking for involuntary markets. Tommy Thompson, former Secretary of Health and Human Services, head of the FDA when the FDA approved the VeriChip as a medical device, interestingly enough, left his his Bush cabinet position as Secretary of Health and Human Services, and within a matter of weeks had taken a job on the board of directors for the VeriChip Corporation and was given 1 million shares of stock options. So he just recently stepped down from that position because he's running for president, and I bet you it is because his political advisors said that's political suicide to be on the board of directors for the human implant company. Tommy, you may want to rethink that. Tommy Thompson promised he himself would be getting a microchip, and he never did. So maybe there's hope for him yet. I'd say a prayer for Mr. Thompson. Colombian President Alvaro Uribe, this is in the congressional record, he told Senator Arlen Specter that he would be willing to chip Colombian guest workers, legal guest workers, with permission to work in the United States before they left Colombia to come here. And Arlen Specter's response was not to say, ugh, what a terrible idea. Arlen Specter actually said, well, the only problem with that is they could gouge them out. It would be too easy for them to remove the implants. Some of you may know that in a nightclub in Barcelona, Spain, people have actually begun getting these chip implants to buy and sell, to buy, in this case, liquor. Under the pounding dance music and the disco lights, you can actually have a chip implanted right into your arm up on the stage. They have a technician who comes in once a month, and you can pay a couple €100 and get this implanted in your body. And then in the future, when you want to buy drinks, you simply have the scanner passed over your arm as if you were a dog at the veterinarians. And they will get your unique ID number. It's linked up with a prepaid account, so you put €100 into an account, and then this deducts back from the account. This is the first example of buying. There's no, I guess there's no selling involved here. But this is the first example of someone actually conducting commerce through the use of an implanted microchip. Now, if you have one of these in you or in your belongings, what is the risk that you would be scanned as you went about your daily business? Well, we do know that companies like Texas Instruments are planning to put these in doorways so that as you walk through, they'll scan you. This is an image that was up on their website a couple years back. As soon as we publicized it, they pulled it, and they even pulled all the archives and got it off of archive.org. They removed it from everywhere, and I happen to have saved a copy of it. And what it shows is this woman walking through a reader device, the antenna device, and obviously her purse is being scanned. Now, I don't know about you, but it doesn't look like she's an active participant in that. Tesco, the UK's largest retailer, they're their equivalent of Walmart. They actually have RFID readers now in their stores, and they are tagging DVDs and other products. Now, they would not tell me. I did a tour of Tesco a while back, and they wouldn't tell me whether their doorway gates scan people on the way in as well as scanning them on the way out. But you can imagine if they could scan you going in, they'd know an awful lot about how to sell you products more efficiently. There's a company, Checkpoint Systems, the one who made the Calvin Klein clothing labels, now has a new reader because they know that you can tell when you're walking through those readers on either side of you. And this is for theft prevention. And they now have a new reader that they can make a big wide opening as wide as the stage. And you could walk right through not knowing that you were being scanned this way rather than this way. Philips Electronics, we found a patent where they actually designed a way to make a flexible tag in your shoe, and they said that the placement of the RFID tag in the shoe may be particularly advantageous where the RFID interrogator or reader is located in a floor. They can place these reader devices under floor tiles, they can weave them into carpeting, they can put them in walls, floors, ceiling tiles, and anywhere else. And whenever you talk about this, I do a lot of government testimony, and I fly around and speak to the legislatures of various states when we're looking at legislation about this. And every time the industry likes to say things like, well, it's not as though we would really be able to scan you everywhere you went. Well, this image, there's an amusement park in England called Alton Towers that did, I think, us a great service by creating a very visible tracking system. What they do when you go into Alton Towers is you get one of these little bracelets on your wrist when you pay your money. And then as you go about your business during the park, unbeknownst to you, as you pass by these hidden readers in the park, they trigger a camera which takes a picture of your face. And at the end of the day, when you go to leave the park, there's a big counter with a lady, and she's selling you a CD of all the pictures of your hanging out at Alton Towers that day, of all the fun that you had. And so as you approach, the system in the counter actually reads your tag, and all your pictures appear on the screen behind her. And she says, for just 20 pounds British sterling, you can actually take this home with you. And so it is possible to create something on you, whether it's a wristband, whether it's a real ID, driver's license in your wallet, whatever it might be, that you would carry around with you that could trigger an entire environment of surveillance in this way. All right, the authorized parties are the ones that scare me the most. In putting together our book, Spy Chips, and I should point out I only have about 12 copies of the book left. I actually didn't bring quite enough, so if you're interested in getting a copy, I do have them in the back. But in our book, Spy Chips, my co-author, Liz McIntyre, who's a former federal bank examiner, and I combed through about 30,000 different documents. We went through white papers, we attended conferences, we looked at schematics, we read everything you could possibly read about this technology. The book is very well footnoted. And one of the most disturbing things we found was a patent by IBM for something they call the Person Tracking Unit. And what the Person Tracking Unit is it's designed to capture the ID numbers in your belongings and link them up with you. So remember I said a can of Coke would each have its own individual ID number? That probably wouldn't matter on a can of Coke, but imagine if your right shoe, when let's say I went in and I bought a pair of shoes at Walmart, and my right shoe contained unique ID number 308247, et cetera, embedded in the sole. And if I pay with a credit card, which I don't use credit cards, but if I did, they could link that 308247 with Katherine Albrecht's right shoe. Now, in the future, anywhere on the globe that I stand near one of these readers or walk through a doorway, and someone picks up 308247, they can look that up in the database and say, well, that's the right shoe that Katherine Albrecht bought on May 15th last month at the when she attended that conference in West Virginia. So given that that was Katherine Albrecht's shoe that just passed by, there's a pretty good chance Katherine Albrecht was standing in it. And so that's what IBM envisions doing, is capturing all of these numbers that are linked to us in these databases and using them to track us. Now, where do they want to track us? This is even more disturbing. Shopping malls, airports, train stations, bus stations, elevators, restrooms, sports arenas, libraries, theaters, museums, everywhere. Imagine you walk into the public restroom and they literally can time how long you're in there. In fact, we even in our book reveal that there's been developed an RFID reader that can go in that soap dispenser to tell whether or not you washed your hands while you were in there. Incredible stuff. Why would they want to do this? Well, they named two reasons why they'd want to do it. One of them is marketing purposes, and a lot of the centers around more effectively parting you from your money, which is why big money is being invested in this. The idea here is, according to IBM in their patent, they would scan the belongings or the contents of a woman's purse right through the leather, and if they saw she was carrying a baby bottle, they would know that she was a new mom and a good candidate for other baby products, and then as she walked around, she would be spammed with advertisements for diapers and such. And then, of course, the other reason they named was Big Brother. They said it would be useful for government agents to be able to identify and locate suspicious persons as they walk around. And I don't know about you folks, but it seems like ever since September 11th, the definition of suspicious person, the government seems to have expanded that to include everybody in this country. Yeah. Procter & Gamble wants to use this. And by the way, I named a lot of Procter & Gamble products. We have a list of them on our website at spychips.com. Please stop funding this company. Every time you take $5 out of your wallet and you give it to Procter & Gamble for one of their products, you may as well be making a donation to Handgun Control Inc. or the Communist Party or whoever it is you don't agree with. Because by buying their products, you are donating to funding all of their technologies. So pay attention to what you're buying and how you're spending your money. Even if there's no RFID tag in what you're buying, you're paying to create this infrastructure to make more RFID tags. They have an idea that they would actually at some point know all the contents of your refrigerator. And the reason they want to do that, they're going to tell you they want to do that, so if there's ever a recall, you'll know. They can contact you directly and say that cat food on your shelf has been tainted and your cat might die. Well, that sounds great, except for the fact that behind the scenes, what they say they really want to do is be able to just sell you more stuff. Imagine if, as P&G imagines, that when you drink the last Pepsi, an ad for Coca-Cola appears on your TV screen because they've actually linked up with your cable company to let them know when you're taking items out of your refrigerator and when you're out of certain things. So it's really a very, that ties back to the thing that that first clued me into this technology, which is the fact that they really do want to know when and where you use products in your home. The first RFID center, Auto ID Center meeting I attended, I sort of sat as a fly in the back of the wall and kind of crashed a few of their meetings over at MIT. In the first meeting I attended, somebody literally said, "Won't it be great when we will know every time the consumer takes the lid off the toothpaste in their own bathroom?" A direct quote. And they've actually developed a way to do it. They want your medicine cabinet to be remotely hooked up so that your doctor and government health officials and your HMO can know if you're taking your prescription medication appropriately. And by the way, that same reader in your medicine cabinet could also tell when you take the lid off the toothpaste. All right. Bell South wants to scan your garbage. This is the parent company of Singular Wireless, and one of the other things the industry will tell you is, well, we'll just put it on the packaging, and when you throw it away, then it's not going to be a privacy issue. There's a company that's since been acquired by IBM that's developed readers that can drive down the road on trash day and identify the contents of the garbage cans and link them up with people's home addresses. Unbelievable. They want to use this one to tell if you've traveled. They actually say if you have a vacation home in the mountains and you buy something there and then you throw it away in the city, they'll be able to tell that you've been traveling by simply scanning it. Unbelievable. All right, now let me tie this in conclusion here to an issue that's very near and dear to my own heart and underpins the work that I do and the reason why I do this work, and that has to do with my Christian faith. And I, at great cost to my professional reputation, I may add, I have come out very vocally as a Bible-believing Christian. And I do believe that this technology, as it evolves and as it begins to pervade our lives, will actually make it possible to implement the mark of the beast as predicted in the book of Revelation. Now, some developments along those lines. The use of cash is being discouraged, which is why I'm so pleased to see people using it here. I always tell audiences that I address, cash, use it, or we're going to lose it. It's very important that we hang on to our ability to pay with cash. That's being discouraged in a myriad of different ways. The Illinois toll roads was one of the first places I saw this. If you refuse to have a toll transponder in your window that can be used to track your car to pay your tolls, they actually charge you double if you want to pay cash. We're going to start seeing more and more of this. They're going to say no one's making you use cash, but they're going to penalize you for doing it. And we're going to see more of that, I believe, in coming months and years. On this was an ad that was on a postcard that I got as some junk mail. And it actually says, use your platinum card and earn double membership rewards points on the things you buy every day. Well, fine and well, but what they're talking about here is they want you to start using it for small purchases. You know, a pack of gum. I mean, they really literally want you to start using it for everything. And look at what it says on this little money clip. Reminder, do not use cash at supermarkets, drugstores, gas stations, post offices, or on your wireless bill. Last time you went to the post office, did the lady say, did you know that you could use Visa, MasterCard, and Discover Card at the post office? I once asked them, why do you keep asking me that? She said, I'll lose my job if I don't. Yeah, they're required to ask you that. I think they may have stopped now after 2 nonstop years of that propaganda. All right. This was a billboard that I saw driving around Massachusetts, and it actually said, welcome to Leominster Credit Union in the town of Leominster, Massachusetts. Experts estimate that the average paycheck is home to over 2 million germs. So put that thing down and sign up for hands-free checking. You just wait. There's going to be some argument that cash is filthy and dirty and you shouldn't touch it. I got to say, if there's 2 million germs on the average paycheck, there's 2 million germs on everything. I mean, I don't know. I haven't sat down and counted germs on things, but I don't think paychecks are any dirtier than anything else. But they really want you to think that. You know, much easier, cleaner to use the electronic version of payments. This thing, you ever seen one of these? This creepy-looking thing, this little blue, I don't know, double pyramid thing, is a wave-and-go credit card reader. This is the thing they want you to wave your wallet at, and it'll automatically pick up the information from your credit card right through your wallet. USA Today article, will that be cash, fingerprint, or cell phone? The next move is going to be to put RFID readers and tags into your cell phone and actually to get you to use your cell phone for payments. Because we've all unthinkingly begun carrying around these wireless transmission devices. And once they've hit a saturation point where the majority of Americans carry their cell phone with them everywhere they go. So that's one way they want to get you to stop using cash. Now, back in 1999, when I first got started with this work, I actually had a sort of a thought experiment where I envisioned the trajectory of how we could ever get to the mark of the beast. And this was around the mobile speed pass. You guys remember the mobile speed pass when it first came out back in the late 90s? It's the thing you can swipe at the gas pump and it'll pay for your gas, or you can go into the convenience mart and pay for your chips with it. Well, what the mobile speed pass is an RFID tag, and it's transmitting a unique ID number through the air. And I said, well, who hasn't lost a set of keys? We've all lost keys. And if your mobile speed pass is on there, then someone else can pick it up and swipe and pay for their gas or groceries. So if you want to move to a point where everything's consolidated into a single chip, which is where we're going, then you probably would want that chip to be somewhat secure. And you probably want to put it like on a wristwatch so that it wouldn't fall off. Or as Sean Hannity suggested, put it in a crucifix around your neck. I kid you not. Yeah. And it wasn't that much longer when I actually ran across Timex and Casio had both come up with payment watches that contained RFID tags that you could wave your wrist at a reader device instead of a card or instead of a mobile speed pass. So you can actually put it on a wristwatch and do it that way. Of course, there's the cheap version. They're actually putting these on people at musical events, at musical concerts now. If you go to one of these big outdoor raves, you will be given one of these RFID-based reader devices on a bracelet. And the ultimate goal of this, now this is the company that makes the wristbands, is they say, give this to people at amusement parks, give them to people at concerts, give them to people at all these different locations so that they can make their payments by simply swiping their RFID tag. And so here you see someone using it to make a payment, someone using it to open the turnstile. Right now in the city of Boston, to get on the subway, you have to use an RFID swipe. There's no longer coins or tokens. You have to actually use a card with RFID. We saw some other pictures of them wanting to use it on vending machines. Why use cash if you can just wave your wrist? Even payphones would withhold dial tones unless you had an RFID tag. And when you tie that all together, we now are to the point where we have the technology to make it possible to prohibit anyone from using a payphone or a vending machine or making a purchase at your local Walmart or anywhere else unless they have an RFID device somehow associated with them in their cell phone, in their credit card, in a wristband, in a wristwatch, or ultimately embedded deep in their flesh. And I'm going to read here from the book of Revelation, and on this note we'll close. This comes from the last portion of Revelation 16, or 13, verses 16 through 18. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, or imprisoned or enslaved, to receive a mark on their right hand or in their foreheads. I need you to scoot so I can see. Okay. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. And on this note, I want to clarify one thing. In the original Greek, that number is literally 666. It is not 3 individual sixes. So the people who say the barcode is 666 because it's 3 individual groups of 6 are wrong. Just thought I'd point that out. It's got to be 666. Do we know what that number is? Absolutely not. I believe that when the time comes, we will know. I believe that it will be as obvious as the nose on your face. There will be no confusion because the God that we serve is a very just God, and he would not allow people to take a mark without knowing full well what it is that they're doing. So all of these people who say, well, the mark is maybe it's Sunday worship, say the Seventh-day Adventist, or maybe the mark is having your photo taken and digitized, or maybe the mark is a real ID. I believe that the mark is going to be exactly what it says it is, and that the world's people will know exactly what it is when it comes. It wouldn't surprise me if it even said the mark TM on it. And in fact, I don't have the slide here, but I kid you not, the RFID industry actually came up with something called the RFID mark. And it was when they even trademarked it, and it was when I pointed it out to them. It was a symbol that was going to tell you RFID was in something. And when I pointed out to them that Christians might not like that, they kind of backpedaled a little bit. Now they call it the RFID emblem. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if it literally called it the mark. Maybe even the mark of the beast, TM. Why not? Poke a little fun at those wacky Christians. So I believe that when the time comes, we'll know. When this prophecy was first made 2,000 years ago on the Isle of Patmos off the coast of Greece by John, I am guessing that he had no idea how you could use a number to buy and sell. Think about that for a moment. Now you can ask any 9-year-old and they'll say, well, with a credit card, of course. So when the time comes, we will know. All right, and here is the reward. And I like to end on a positive note, and the Bible does too. And the Bible ends on, I think, the most positive note of all, and the thing that should give us all hope and encouragement as we move forward in these troubled times. And let me read this. I love this. This is Revelation 20, verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for their testimony to Jesus and for the word of God, who had not worshipped the beast, nor its image, neither had received its mark upon their foreheads or their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Now, when people tell you, I hope it's not my generation that has to be beheaded for the testimony of Christ and for refusing to take the mark of the beast, you tell them that it is that generation that is the one that will live and reign with Christ for 1,000 years. Everybody else has to wait. They don't get resurrected until the end of those 1,000 years, and then they get judged. And in that judgment, many of them will die permanently. But the people who refuse the mark of the beast and were beheaded for the testimony of Christ in this time, whenever it comes, whether it's next year or in 1,000 years, those are the people who will be rewarded by living on earth directly with our Savior. And that's the incredible part. So if it does happen in your lifetime, when you go into that difficult period, if it happens, and tell your children and your grandkids to know this as well, that if it happens during that generation, that is a blessed generation. It won't feel like it here on earth, but it definitely is blessed in the eyes of God. And now let me conclude. If you say that, there's going to be an awful lot of crying. There will be when that time comes, absolutely. And here's what God has to say about that. And I heard a great voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling of God is with men. He will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. And God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. He who conquers shall have this heritage, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Man, that makes it hard to breathe. What do you say after something like that? Praise God is right. Well, you know, they say we may lose the battle, but we're going to win the war.